This video is brought to you by Moft. Today I'm going to be showing you 25 settings that you need to change on your iPhone 15, 15 Pro, or any iPhone running iOS 17. I'm going to be covering battery saving settings, feature settings, as well as security and privacy settings, and also app settings, with plenty of tips and tricks along the way to help you get the most out of your iPhone. All right, so first we're going to take a look at some essential security settings. Now, these settings are going to make your iPhone both more secure and also more private. And the first we're going to look at is a feature called Stolen Device Protection. So to activate this, we're going to jump into the Settings app, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find Face ID and passcode. Then we'll enter in our passcode. And from there, we're going to scroll down once more to where we find Stolen Device Protection. Then we're going to tap into this menu and then tap on the toggle to activate this setting. But what does this actually do? Well, Stolen Device Protection essentially adds an additional layer of security by introducing a delay before certain iPhone settings or changes can be made. This includes, for example, changing the password of your Apple ID, changing the passcode to your iPhone, or to access things like your stored passwords on your phone. And this can definitely give you an advantage, as this means that these settings won't be able to change as quickly. This delay is typically around an hour, so this allows you to secure your account details beforehand. If, say, your phone is ever lost or stolen, that person manages to get their way into the phone, or it's stolen and the phone is still unlocked. Now, you can set this to activate only when your phone is away from familiar locations, such as your home or the office, or you can also have this run always. Next, I'm going to talk about Face ID. So if we're going to go back here, and in the same menu, we're going to scroll up, and first here we have a section that will allow you to determine what Face ID can do. Now, in my opinion, Face ID is very secure, so I suggest you turn all of these on for convenience, while still, of course, protecting your data. And then secondly here, beneath that, we do have the option to set up an alternative appearance. Now, this I think is great. Say, gentlemen, you have a beard that you shave, and that can definitely change your appearance, sometimes make Face ID a little bit slow, or perhaps not even recognize you. And ladies, let's say, for example, you have different hairstyles, right? Here you wear your hair up or down, or perhaps you get a haircut or something. I have recognized in people, both myself as well as my fiance, that Face ID can sometimes be a little bit difficult with that. So in that case, setting up an alternative appearance will ensure that Face ID runs smoothly. And then very important, if we scroll further down on this page, we have this section here. Now, this is so commonly overlooked. I see this all the time in friends, and that is to determine what your phone can or can't do as long as it is locked. Now, by default, most of these are going to be on. And this means that even when your phone is locked, someone is going to be able to activate Siri to, for example, respond to a message or to get access to your calendar. They'll be able to return a missed call or even access things like your wallet or plug into accessories like a computer to access perhaps data or to transfer data to or from your phone. These are things that you really don't want, especially if your phone is still locked. So my advice is to turn all of these off to start, then go through them individually and see what you actually need on. For example, you can see that there's only two that I have on, and the first here is my lock screen widget. So I have a weather widget that I want to see. I don't mind that updating in the background. And then secondly is my live activity. So this is for my Apple Watch to see how I'm going with my rings. But other than that, I keep everything off. Basically, I don't want my phone to do much so long as it is locked. I think that makes sense. Great. So if we scroll down here, we have the last option in this page, and that is the erase data setting. Now, this is something that I recommend for most people. What this means is if, say, your phone is ever lost or stolen, that person is probably going to try to brute force their way in by guessing your password or passcode. And in this case, if they fail it or if they get the incorrect passcode 10 times in a row, your phone is going to automatically erase itself. This means that even when your phone is lost and stolen or no longer safe, at least your data will be, as eventually this is just going to erase itself. Now, personally, I love having this feature and I turn this on all of my Apple devices, but I do think there are some exceptions. For example, if, say, you are a parent, you may have a child trying to access your phone and you don't want that to inadvertently erase your data, or if, say, you have some friends who are going to try and do this to you for fun, you may not want to use this feature, but I think in most cases, just for the peace of mind, this is definitely something that I recommend you activate. Great, so now let's talk about AirDrop and making that more secure. So in the main page of settings, we're going to tap on General, and then we're going to tap on AirDrop. Now here we have a feature called Start by Sharing by bringing devices together. Now this is a relatively recent feature in which you can take one iPhone and sort of angle it above the iPhone to then connect the two for sharing things via AirDrop. Now this is a cool feature and the animation is nice, but it also makes it very easy for your iPhone to connect to other iPhones, sometimes even inadvertently, so long as they're close enough. So this is something that I recommend you turn off and instead just use the regular AirDrop settings, for example, to only be discoverable by your contacts or even by everyone, but then only for a short period of time. So this is a feature I definitely recommend you turn off. And then from AirDrop, let's take a look at Wi-Fi and making that more secure too. So over on the main page, we're going to tap on Wi-Fi, and then here beneath that, we have the option to ask to join networks. And this is something that I recommend you turn off, especially you probably recognize this if you're out, say, at an airport or at a new part of town or some public transport station. You'll probably get a pop-up asking to join a Wi-Fi network. Now, while this can be useful to easily join a network, it's also very easy in this way to potentially join an unsafe network, right? You can often have networks that will portray, for example, Starbucks. It may be named that, but it may not actually be Starbucks and just be someone on their laptop trying to gather data. So turning off that prompt entirely means you are less likely to accidentally join a malicious network. And then instead, of course, to join a network, just go through the regular settings page here to tap individually if you want to do so. But personally, and I think most people these days, data packs are really great. You probably don't need to join networks that you're not familiar with. And now I want to take a look at some settings that really make your iPhone more private. So if we go ahead and take a look at the main page here of settings, what we're going to do is scroll down to where we find privacy and security. And then here we have the first option, very important, is your location services. And here I recommend you really do an audit. Basically, you'll see here a list of all of your applications, which will be asking to use your location. And beneath that on the right, you'll see what kind of permissions you've given each app. Now, the one word you want to look for in this list is the word always. This is the word that you never want to see. So to give you an example here, let's say I take Instagram and I want them to always be to always access my location. You can tap on always. Chances are they will ask this when you first open the app, and you will see always here. And you want to make sure to change that to either really any of the other settings, particularly while I'm using the app. That's what I set most of mine to, or simply set it to never. Like, there are applications that really don't need to be accessing your location. For example, here, this is an ironing delivery service, something I really don't think needs to access my location. They have my address on file. They don't need to know where I am specifically. And secondly, for example, there's other applications like Safari websites, websites in Safari, they'll often ask as well, but I always turn that off. And really, most applications, like I said, is going to be best to have on while I'm using the app. And again, this will only allow them to access your location so long as that app is open and running. And then secondly, we also have the option to share or not share your precise location. So Instagram actually, I think, is a good example where, let's say I want to tag a location in a post. It can know the rough city that I'm at, for example, here in London, that's where I live, but I don't want them to know the specific street. So they don't need to either. So I just turn off precise location, and Instagram will only know that I'm in London, but not specifically where. So again, just go through this entire list of applications and make sure that you have no application that will always have access to your location, and the ones that don't need it, to make sure that they are set to never. And then if we go back one page here, on the second option, we have tracking. And this is something that I always turn off as well. You may recognize if you download a new application from the App Store, it will ask you to track your activity across different applications. I'm not sure why Apple even allows this in the first place, but if you turn off this feature here, the application won't even be able to ask you. So you won't be bothered with that prompt. And again, you can rest assured knowing that that app won't be tracking you. And then if we scroll down here, you can see that we can actually control the privacy and security settings for each individual element of the phone. So some of the most important ones, I think, are going to be photos, camera, as well as microphone. And I want you to go through all of these and again, audit them just like we did with the location. Photos, I think, is another good example where you can also set very specific parameters. So for example, let's say Instagram again, we're going to be picking on Instagram today. Great app, by the way, but yes, you have to be careful or rather aware with the security and privacy settings that you set up. But Instagram is a good example where, as you can see, I allow for limited access to specific photos, not to all of my library. And you can see in here, we can also edit that selection specifically, see which photos or videos you want it to have access to. I think this is really great, as I don't need it to have access to all 5,000 of my photos, instead only to specific ones. And other applications here that will have previously asked you for access, you will see you can control them from here as well. So let's say YouTube, if I want to remove that, simply tap on none, and then they will no longer have access to my library. And once you've gone through all of these, again, the most important are going to be photos, camera, as well as your microphone, but really I suggest going through all of them. Here at the bottom, we do also have the analytics and improvements tab, and I suggest you turn these off. What that's basically going to do is send regular analytics reports to Apple. That's going to take a little bit of battery as well, but mainly for security and privacy reasons, I don't think that's necessary. So I suggest you turn all of these off as well. And finally, in the security and privacy section of this video, if ever say you need to put your phone on what is called lockdown mode, what you can do is press and hold either of the volume buttons and the side button, press and hold it. And as you can see, we get onto the power off menu. If we tap on cancel, your iPhone is now in lockdown mode, and you can see that Face ID is actually going to be disabled. So if I scroll here, or rather try to unlock, Face ID will not work, and I have to enter my passcode to unlock my phone. So this can be super useful. If you need to quickly secure your phone, simply press and hold the side and power button, and that will put your phone into lockdown mode. Now, most of what we look at today is going to be software related. However, one very important hardware tip that I do have is to add protection and also functionality to your iPhone with Moft. Starting with the Movas case. Now, this is available for all iPhone 15 models and is made of a really nice vegan leather that actually outperforms genuine leather in abrasion resistance, meaning it's more durable and will also last longer. The fine-grained texture of the Movas material also adds grip in the hand, and I really like the metal buttons. The case also comes in a range of colors, and my favorites are going to be the Misty Cove as well as the Jet Black. The Movas case pairs perfectly with the Snap Stand Power Set. Now, this set consists of two parts. So first, there is the Snap-on phone stand and wallet, and then also the Snap battery pack. The Snap-on phone stand and wallet is made from the same Movas material and attaches with MagSafe and can hold up to 2 cards. In the hand, the wallet also acts as a grip, and the best part is it also works as a built-in stand. Great to use in portrait mode to set up on your desk to take calls and keep an eye on notifications, and then switch to landscape mode to comfortably watch videos while out on the go. Speaking of on the go, be sure to use the MagSafe battery pack for some extra power while out. Like the wallet, it uses MagSafe to attach so there's no cables, and I like how the thin profile lets me charge the phone while I'm using it or having it in my pocket. The battery pack uses pass-through charging, meaning I can plug it in, place my phone on top, and then overnight both will charge. The beauty of the setup is that it is entirely modular, and this means you can customize your setup to match your day. To add functionality to your iPhone with Moft, be sure to head to the links in the description and use code DION10 for 10% off your order. And this brings us to the battery saving settings sections of this video, a super important section to help you get more out of your iPhone and also help it last longer. So first, we're going to take a look at saving battery with notifications. Now, you probably get many notifications per day, probably 50, maybe even 100, and the amount of notifications you get definitely has a big impact on your battery. So to audit this and essentially trim this down, what we're going to do is tap into settings, then tap on notifications, and then here you'll see a list of all of the applications that are wanting to send you notifications, and chances are almost every application does. But as you can see, if we go through my list, many applications simply say off. As you can see, Amazon is off, App Store off, Apple Store off, and this means these apps won't be able to send me notifications and bother me throughout the day. So my suggestion is to, again, audit, go through every application, see, does it really need to be bothering me throughout the day? Yes or no, and then you can turn the apps or the notifications on or off. You can also customize it. So let's say, for example, let's say Amazon. I do want to allow notifications, but I don't want them to be on my lock screen, and I don't want them to play sounds. Instead, I only want them to show up in my notification center that I check maybe once or twice per day, so I don't miss them, but I don't need them in the moment. So this way you can also modify exactly how the notifications come in. You'll see here under Amazon, it now says deliver quietly. And like I said before, the less notifications you have coming in, the less you'll be bothered throughout the day, but also the less your phone screen is going to turn on, the less the vibration motor is going to vibrate, and the less your speaker is going to make a noise. And if you're talking about 100 plus notifications per day, this really adds up and takes a lot of battery. Not to mention that being bothered less throughout the day is also great for your mental health, and I especially like knowing that when my phone goes off, it is going to be something important, like say certain social media apps or say messaging apps, notifications that I want to see and not look at, realize I don't need, unlock my phone, be on Instagram or TikTok for a little while, and before you know it, 10 minutes have passed and I've completely stopped working. And just like notifications, we're going to do the exact same thing with background app refresh. So on the main page of settings, we're going to tap on general, and then we're going to scroll to where we find background app refresh. And just like before, almost all applications are probably going to want to run in the background and probably already do by default. So my suggestion is to go through and turn off which applications you do or don't want running in the background. Now up here, you do have the option to turn it off for all applications. This is something that I actually don't recommend, as some applications to properly function do need to run in the background. For example, things like your Maps apps. So I turn that on for Google Maps. Certain social media apps that I use often, like Instagram, Messenger, I always want that to be up to date, as well as my music. But you can see a lot of apps I also turn off. Games, shopping apps, certain utility applications, right? These don't need to be running in the background using battery. So the more you have off here, the more battery you're going to save. Another really big battery saving tip that is commonly overlooked has to do with mail, more specifically how often your phone checks for mail in the background. So to do this, we're going to jump into settings here, and on the main page, we're going to scroll to where we find mail right here, and then we're going to tap on accounts, and at the bottom of accounts we have the fetch new data menu, and this here is going to determine whether, first of all, push is on or off. And push basically means that your iPhone will constantly check for emails, and as soon as an email comes in, it is automatically pushed to your iPhone. Now this won't be available for all servers. It will be available, for example, for your iCloud email address, and this is something that, while from one hand, yes, it is good to always have your inbox up to date, means it also uses a lot of battery power. So I suggest you turn this one off, so to not have any of your inboxes on push. And over here on the bottom, we can check how often your phone actually fetches or basically refreshes your mailbox when it is not in use. And my advice really is to either go for hourly, maybe 30 minutes. I like 30 minutes. I do want it to be up to date. 15 minutes I really think is overkill. And I found that the difference between 15 and 30 is really significant from a battery life perspective. And of course, you can also set it to manually, so it won't refresh your inbox until you actually manually open mails and then swipe down to unlock. And this here will save you most battery life. But again, I think the sweet spot for most is going to be either hourly or every 30 minutes. And now let's talk about the display. Of course, a really essential part of your phone, but also probably the biggest battery drain, I would say. So how you set this up definitely matters. So if we go ahead and take a look in settings here, we're going to jump to display and brightness, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find auto lock. Now, there's one setting here that you absolutely want to avoid, and that is called never. Now, basically all recent iPhones, including all iPhone 15s, many of the 14s as well, use OLED displays. Now, OLED displays can be susceptible to burn-in over time, in which the screen will permanently be, you'll sort of get a permanent image imprinted on your display. And there's no way to fix this aside from, well, buying a new screen, which is a very costly repair. And this is largely due to, for example, having your phone on a constant image for an extended period. For example, having your phone never unlock, or as well as using high brightness. So you also want to make sure to use auto brightness, but we'll take a look at that in a sec. But really, you want to make sure that your auto lock is not set to never, and instead set to a much shorter time frame. Like, in my opinion, I think 30 seconds is great. Even 3 minutes is good. Now, because I'm filming, I'm using it to 5 minutes, but normally I keep mine at around 30 seconds. It's also more secure, your phone will lock more quickly. And secondly, of course, it saves you a lot of battery, right? It means that your screen is going to be on less when you're not using it. Now earlier I briefly talked about auto brightness, and this is something you definitely want to make sure is on. Now it is on by default, but you may have accidentally turned this off, and to make sure that it is on, we're going to go into settings, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find accessibility. There it is, accessibility, and then we're going to tap on to display and text, and then we're going to scroll all the way down to auto brightness, and you want to make sure that this is on. Now again, because I'm filming, I currently have it off, but normally speaking, I always use auto brightness. I find it to work really well, always makes the screen bright enough outdoors, and definitely dims it down when you are indoors, or say when you're using your phone late at night and you don't want to wake up your significant other. Now you can also use Siri to turn on or off auto brightness, so you can just press and hold the side button here and then be able to turn that on or off as well, rather than having to dig through the menus. Now quickly going back to the menu we were at before, the display and brightness menu, here we do also have the option to turn on or off raise to wake. Now what does this do? Well, it basically means that when your phone is laid on the table, it's going to be off, and as soon as you pick it up, your screen is automatically going to wake up to make it easier to, and quicker, really essentially quicker to unlock your phone. All you have to do is swipe and then unlock your phone. Now this is a feature that personally I really like, but if you are out to save as much battery as possible, this is something that you can turn off. Next, I want to talk about Siri, more specifically how to activate Siri. So earlier you probably saw me activate Siri by pressing and holding the side button, and this is the best way to activate Siri, especially from a battery life perspective. So over in settings, we are going to scroll down to where we find Siri and search, and here we have the listen for setting. Now by default this will be on, and basically means that Siri will be activated if you say any of these activation phrases. I'm not going to say them now to trigger your Siri, but if you have this feature on, what it means is your microphones are going to be constantly listening for those activation phrases, and this really uses a lot of battery. So my advice is to turn this off and instead activate Siri by pressing and holding the side button. This here works really quickly as well, and as you can see, Siri comes up, and the big advantage of this also, aside from saving a lot of battery, is that you won't have any accidental triggers of Siri, something that always seems to happen to me while I'm in a meeting. And next, I want to talk about battery health. Now, battery health is, of course, very important, and there's a great setting here that is going to enable you to extend, or rather preserve, your iPhone's battery health. So if we go over on the main page here in the settings page, we're going to tap on battery. And then here, by the way, you do have the option to show your battery percentage, something you can turn on or off. You can also trigger low power mode here if, say, your battery is running low. But in this case, we're going to tap on battery health. And then here, you can see not only what your current maximum capacity is, you can also see your battery health status and also your cycle count. So normally speaking, it should go around 500 cycles or so, and then not drop below 80% capacity, at which point your battery is still operating normally. Of course, results do vary. Temperature plays a large role, but what we're going to be looking at today is, if we scroll back, tap on charging optimization. Now here we have three options, and by default this is going to be set to none, but I'm going to explain what both of these top two here do, as these are really important. So the first one that I use, and the one that I recommend to most, is called optimized battery charging. Now what that's going to do is it's going to sort of learn your charging habits. So when you plug in your phone late at night, let's say at 11 p.m. before you go to sleep, it's going to charge from 0 all the way up to 80%, and then wait with the remaining 20% till closer to when you typically wake up and unplug your phone. This is going to slow the charging process, and also means that your phone will be sat at 100% for a shorter period of time, but you're going going to reduce the wear on your battery. So this I think is really great, but of course if you want to take it one step further and save potentially even more battery health, you do also have the option to set it to an 80% limit, which means that your phone is going to charge from 0 all the way up to 80% and never exceed that. So it does also mean sacrificing 20% of your battery life, something that I don't think is worth it. But if you really are out to preserve that battery health for as long as possible, this here will take that even further. But I think for most people, optimized battery charging is going to be the sweet spot. So now I want to show you some really neat app as well as feature settings to make apps even better and also unlock new features on your iPhone. And the first thing we're going to look at is adding the ability to change a text size specific to an application. So this here is really useful. So if we go ahead and jump into settings, what we're going to do is scroll down to where we find Control Center. And then here we're going to add a new control to our control center by scrolling all the way down. And these are all the controls that you can add, including this one here. And this is called text size. We'll go and tap on the little plus sign, and that will now be added to our list of controls. And as you can see, if we swipe down in the control center, we have this new icon here. And if we tap on this, we have the ability to change the text size, not just for all applications, but also for specific apps. So let's say settings here, I want to make the text a little bit bigger. That's very large, but let's see how that looks. And as you can see, the text size in this app is now going to be much larger, but the text size on my iPhone hasn't changed at all. So it's specific to that application. So something I find really useful, especially if, say, I am reading an article in Safari and it's just a little bit smaller and I want to make it a little bit bigger and make it just that bit more easy to read. And of course, to change it back, simply tap on the same control here in your control center, bring it back to 100%, which is the default. And there we go. It is back like normal. This next one is really cool and is actually something I only recently found out about, and that is the ability to set custom vibration patterns. Now, if you're like me, you probably have your phone constantly on silent mode. I know I always do, but this way, depending on the vibration, I can already feel what kind of notification comes in. So this is really cool without even having to take my phone out of my pocket or check the screen. This is really great. So let me show you how to set this up. So if we're going to go onto the main page here of settings, we tap on sound and haptics, and then let's take a look here at text tone, for example. And then here under haptics, we're going to tap on default. And then here we have the option to create a new vibration. So here we can actually tap or tap and hold depending on how long or short we want that vibration to be. So for example, we can tap. There we go. And as you can see in this little bar here at the bottom, you'll see the darker blue parts are going to be a vibration and the lighter blue parts are going to be a essentially no vibration or a gap between the vibrations. And we go ahead and play this back. And as you can see, we have this little animation here as well. So depending on the pattern of the vibration that I feel in my pocket, I can already know what's coming in without having to check my phone. And if we go back in the same menu here, we do also have the option to show or not show whether your phone is on silent. Of course, on the new iPhone 15 Pros, we no longer have the mute switch. So instead you do this via the control center. And here you can have that show on screen if you like, just to make a more visual, clear indication that your phone is on silent. Again, I usually keep mine on silent or basically always, so I don't need that to show on my phone. And one more setting here, if we scroll down, we have keyboard feedback. Now, this is something that I've really grown used to and definitely miss on other phones. Most phones these days have it, even on the Android side. I noticed most of my Galaxy phones have this too, but it basically gives you a little bit of a clicky feedback with every key that you press. It kind of brings me back to the old BlackBerry days. Maybe that's why I like it. But it's just nice to have a little bit of a tactile feel with every key you press. And the nice thing is as well, this is completely quiet as well. I don't like the sound, so I do turn that off. But the haptic feedback, that little vibration with every keyboard click, I do like, and this is where you can turn that on to essentially activate the haptic feedback for your keyboard. Next, I'm going to show you a couple of useful camera settings. So if we go into the camera settings here on the main page, we're going to scroll to where we find camera. There it is. And here we have a few really cool settings that I definitely suggest you turn on. And those are going to be these two here, grid as well as level. These are going to make it much easier for you to line up your shot. It's essentially going to show you a 3x3 grid, as you can see like that. And it's also going to show you a level to make sure your shot is level. And that's going to give you a much better photo in a really short time. This is super useful tools that I definitely recommend you always keep on. Have you ever sent an email and realized either you forgot to add an attachment or you forgot to CC someone? Well, there is a way to actually undo send, or essentially add a small delay between hitting send and your mail actually sending to allow you to make up for what you may have forgot. And this is really useful. I set this up on my Mac and I really enjoy this on my iPhone as well. I somehow tend to forget to add attachments or CC people sometimes. So this really solves that issue. So in settings here, we're going to scroll down to where we find mail. And from there, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And here we have undo send delay. And again, this is essentially going to be the delay between you pressing send and that mail actually leaving your phone to send. You can set this all the way from 10 up to 30 seconds. I think 10 seconds here on my phone is fine. On my Mac, I believe I have it set to 30, but you can change that varyingly as well. But this is something that I definitely recommend, and I think this is a no-lose situation because if ever you forget something, you can pull it back and correct it before sending again. And this next setting is especially great for the iPhone 15 Plus or 15 Pro Max models, but even on the regular model, like here, the iPhone 15 Pro, sometimes typing with one hand can be a little bit tricky, particularly reaching the other end of the keyboard with your thumb. Say you've got a coffee in one hand and you're walking down a busy road and you quickly want to respond to a message, it is actually possible to activate the one-handed keyboard. So to do this, very simple. You want to simply press and hold on the globe icon that you have in the bottom right of your screen. This could also be an emoji icon if you don't have multiple languages set up. And here we have two options. We can either set the keyboard over to the left side, or we can also set it over to the right side. So depending on which hand you are, I'm actually left-handed, so I prefer to have it here on my left hand. As you can see, it's essentially going to scooch those keys a little bit shorter, making it just that bit more easier to reach to the other side of the keyboard and access it fully with one hand. So the one-handed keyboard on iPhone is super useful, and to undo it, simply tap on the little arrow and it will expand the keyboard once again. All right, for this next one, we're going to jump into messages. More specifically, take a look at what is called predictive text. So when you're typing a message, these top three words here are going to be what your iPhone thinks you're going to type next. Now, this is on by default, and some people I know really like this, but others don't, and I'm in that second group. I personally don't really use it much, and it does take up valuable screen space. I'd rather have more screen space dedicated to the conversation as opposed to this line taken up by those suggestions. So to turn this off, what we're going to do, or to turn it on for that matter, if you do enjoy the feature, is we're going to jump into settings, and then we're going to tap onto general, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find keyboard, and in here we have the predictive text option right there. So it's the third option. In my case here, we're going to turn that off, and check this out. If we go back to messages, it's going to give you a lot more screen space dedicated to your message thread, allowing you to see more lines of text as opposed to that whole section being filled up by those three words. So again, I don't really use this often, so I prefer to have this off. Secondly, while we're here in iMessage, you'll see here if we tap on this plus icon, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of applications that you probably may or may not use often. There is a way to actually choose what applications you want to have shown here within your iMessage. So to do this, we're going to go into settings, and we're going to go back here, and we're going to tap onto messages. There it is. And then here we have iMessage apps. And from here, we can go ahead and turn on or off any application that supports an iMessage app. And let's say if there's some that you don't ever use in iMessage, we can go ahead and turn those off, and that will help declutter your iMessage apps and make it more easy to find the app you actually want. And lastly, in iMessage, you'll see here I've been sending a bunch of photos to my poor fiance who's being spammed here with photos, but at least they are in good quality, as there is actually a way to enable for best quality photos to be sent in iMessage. So to do this, we're going to go into settings here, and then we're going to go into messages, and in this case, we are going to scroll down to where we find, and here we're going to scroll down to where we find low quality image mode, and you want to make sure that this setting is off, as this means your photos won't be compressed, and it's actually going to send you the full quality images, something I really don't like about other messaging apps, like for example WhatsApp, that will always really compress your photos. Even Messenger does this, but at least through iMessage you are able to send those full quality photos for your friend or your fiance or whatever to download and keep. All right, so next I want to take a look at the App Store, more specifically some really key settings that definitely make your experience using the App Store much better. So over in the settings page here, we're going to scroll to where we find App Store. I wonder how much I've said that during this video. And here we have a few settings that I definitely recommend you switch. So first we have app downloads. Now, this is something that you may want on. Personally, I don't like to have this on. For example, if I download an application on one iPhone or say on my iPad, I don't necessarily want that app to be installed across all of my devices. A lot of apps I install are specific to that device. So turning this off means that those apps won't automatically be installed, taking up storage. Something that I do recommend you turn on though is your automatic app updates. This means your apps will be running with the latest features and also the newest security updates always. So this is something I definitely recommend you do. I find in most cases the iPhone only updates applications when you're not using it, for example, overnight while it is on charge. And the same thing goes for in-app content. This is something like, for example, podcasts. You want to download the newest episodes as soon as they come out. You can make sure that these will be automatically downloaded in the background and ready for when you need them. And just beneath that, we have the in-app ratings and reviews. Don't you hate it when an application pops up with a pop-up asking you to rate it? Personally, I like to rate applications. I sometimes give valuable feedback if they aren't so great, but I really prefer to be the one to take the initiative to do so. I don't need to be reminded by the application. So this is something that I like to turn off, and that way the application won't be able to ask you. And here beneath that, we have a very interesting setting, and that is called offload unused apps. Now, this is something that some people really like and can be useful if, say, you are running low on storage. Basically, what it's going to do is it's going to go through for your applications. Let's say here I have Docs and I haven't used that application in weeks. It's actually going to offload the application, basically delete the application, still store the app data, however, so in this case, the documents, but the application itself will be removed to help save some storage on your phone. But then, of course, when you go to open it, it won't launch until you first have to download it, say you're on Wi-Fi. But if you're traveling or something, or perhaps even on a flight, you don't want that to happen. So in that case, I do turn this off. Next, I want to show you a really important safety feature to help protect your eyes, and this has to do with screen distance. So to activate this setting, we're going to scroll down to where we find screen time, and then we're going to tap on screen distance, and you want to make sure that this is turned on. Now, what this setting is going to do is through Face ID, it's going to periodically check to see how close the distance is between your face and your phone. And if your screen is less than 30 centimeters or around 12 inches from your face, your iPhone is actually going to come up with a pop-up here to prompt you to move your phone further away. So this is very important. This is going to help you with eye strain. It's going to definitely make sure that happens less, and especially also for children whose eyes are still developing, and it is very important to not have your phone too close. So something I definitely recommend you turn on. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you have any questions at all, and if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you check out my iPhone 15 20 tips and tricks and hidden features video to learn even more about this powerful phone. Thanks again for watching, and take care.